Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly past velvet curtains and into the chill of a palace, where the walls remember every whisper. The air here is thick with candle wax and ambition, draped in the hush that only power can buy. You shuffle along polished marble floors, heart tiptoeing as if it too fears the echo of your footsteps. Somewhere in these labyrinthine halls sits a queen, whose smile is soft as silk, and whose heart, you'll soon realize, is hammered iron beneath layers of gold thread. The very throne room itself seems to lean in, eager for the next secret or the next scream. Outside, the city glimmers with promise, but in here you're part of her story now, a court of trembling nobles, curious spies and servants who never quite meet your eye. You know how these tales go, don't you? You wander too far, you stare a moment too long, and suddenly you're not an observer but a participant. Trust me, you probably won't survive this night if you're careless. So, before we drift any deeper, if this hushed little corner brings you even a flicker of calm, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it feels right in your chest. And if you're awake right now, tell me your city and local time in the comments. I always love to see where you're listening from, especially when we're about to wade into royal waters that are anything but still. Now, breathe slow. Let the weight fall off your shoulders and sink with me into tonight's slow unraveling of the past. Right here on Historian's Diary, you move with the crowd, swept along like a single drop in a velvet river toward the throne at the room's far end. The queen reclines in regal indifference, all white lace and cunning eyes. Her hair is a black net, wound with tiny rubies that catch the light each time she nods at a sycophant or dismisses an enemy with the flick of a bejeweled wrist. Around her, courtiers murmur and shift, arranging their faces into the bland safety of deference. But you linger in the shadows, feeling the temperature dip as she turns your way, even just for a heartbeat. This is no fairy tale court. Here, alliances are stitched tighter than corsets, and lies pour smoother than the honeyed wine passed around in gold-rimmed goblets. You overhear a joke about the queen's latest jewel, how it's so bright it probably cost someone their head. Laughter ripples, quickly strangled, because even a careless joke can end in a cell, or worse. Still, the pageantry is dazzling. Every hem is encrusted with pearls, every hand is heavy with rings. The court seems wrapped in splendor, but you sense the nervous current beneath, like a lake hiding crocodiles just below its mirrored surface. Every so often a small cough, a sideways glance, a trembling hand clutching a goblet. 100 tiny betrayals bloom in the corners. A mainstream fact floats to the surface here. Even in the grandest European courts, the throne room wasn't merely a seat of power, it was a theatre. Monarchs controlled the scene, like playwrights, cueing who would kneel and who would stand, ensuring every eye was turned their way at just the right moment. You, tonight, are caught in her play, whether you like it or not. You can't help noticing how her voice is velvet wrapped around steel. When she speaks, you find yourself listening, even as the words cut deeper than any knife. Her commands drift through the room, and courtiers snap to attention with the practiced obedience of people who know that a single misstep could be fatal. One man too bold, or perhaps too tired to hide his yawn, earns a look that could shatter glass. He stumbles, suddenly needing to fetch something, and vanishes. You wonder if you'll see him again. If you're feeling brave, you edge closer, pretending interest in the carved panels lining the hall. Each tells a story: hunts, victories, betrayals, mercy sparingly offered. There's one where a king is handing out justice, his enemies kneeling, faces carved in exquisite agony. It's meant to be a lesson. Loyalty is rewarded, defiance is melted down, reshaped, and worn by the winner. Funny how history never quite specifies what happens to the losers, isn't it? You catch a glimpse of the queen's hands, slim, quick, always in motion, toying with a golden signet ring. Rumor has it, she never removes it, even in sleep. Supposedly, it once belonged to her greatest rival, and every time she turns it, she's reminded of exactly what she's willing to do to keep her throne. It's a comforting thought if you're her. If you're not, well, maybe don't get too attached to your jewelry. You may be wondering how someone like her becomes the center of gravity for an entire kingdom. That's no accident. From the softest pillow in her chamber to the sharpest dagger at her belt, every object, every smile, every silence is weaponized. It's like living in a chess game. Except here, the queen has decided she's the only piece that matters. Pity the pawns. She shifts in her seat, and the room holds its breath. For a moment, you imagine she's just another bored monarch, watching the parade of ambition with weary eyes. But then you catch the calculation behind her lashes, the private joke that never quite makes it to her lips. She knows things you never will. She's seen things you couldn't survive. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. For now, you're just a guest, another face in a sea of anxious, glittering faces, hoping to slip through the night unnoticed. You might even dare a nervous laugh at the latest courtly quip. Careful what you drink here. You never know what's in the cup. You nod along, but you feel it, that icy warning crawling up your spine. The evening drags on. Shadows grow deeper. You sense the queen's patience thinning, the kind of tension that makes your scalp tingle. She's waiting for something or someone. And as the music starts up again, you realize, in this court, even the melodies sound like warnings. Each note a veiled threat, each pause a secret being kept. You decide to linger, for just a moment longer, holding your breath as her gaze sweeps the hall one final time before the true games begin. You drift back in time, farther from the heat of the queen's throne, farther still from the hungry eyes and trembling hands that fill her palace tonight. Before she ruled over this kingdom of shadows and secrets, she was only a girl, a child surrounded by gold so dazzling it threatened to blind her to everything else. If you squint, you can see her now, perched on the edge of a brocade cushion, feet swinging above floors colder than any winter. Her childhood palace is nothing like the one you just left. Here, the walls are still innocent, decorated with painted vines and little birds. Servants, younger and less practiced in caution, whisper freely as they braid her hair or tie the silk ribbons at her wrists. You hear them say she's golden, but not in the way they mean. She listens, always, head tilted, cataloguing every word, every slip, every joke told when they think she's not listening. Even as a child, she learns, quickly, that what people say when they think you aren't listening is far more valuable than what they say to your face. Her father is a king, but not yet a legend, and certainly not a monster. His love comes in bursts, a velvet cloak on her birthday, a sapphire pin in her braid, lessons delivered between audiences and petitions. He teaches her how to count coins, how to weigh silver in her palm, how to tell the difference between polished gold and a clever fake. Gold is never just gold, he says once, kneeling so she meets his eyes. It's a promise or a threat. Never forget which. Mainstream fact. In medieval royal courts, children were often taught early to recognize genuine gold and precious stones. So much of their future would depend on not being fooled. Other lessons follow: how to spot a lie in a smile, how to speak softly and listen even more softly, how to laugh without revealing your true thoughts. You imagine her now, trailing her governess through rose gardens, every step careful, every glance catalogued. Little joke: if you step on the wrong petal, the roses will tell your secrets. You laugh, but you know she takes it seriously. She always does. One evening, you catch her sneaking out to the kitchens, toes curling against the cold flagstones. She bribes a baker for a handful of honeyed almonds. Her first taste of sweet power. The baker winks, thinking it's all innocent fun, but you see the way she tucks the lesson away. Everything has a price, even kindness. As she grows, so does her beauty, but it's her sharpness that truly sets her apart. Tutors try to school her in embroidery and dance, but she's more interested in the subtle art of negotiation. She practices with dolls at first, offering one a ribbon in exchange for another's tiny crown, orchestrating tiny dramas that echo the grown-up quarrels she overhears from behind the drapes. "You're too clever by half," her nursemaid whispers, half in awe, half in fear. Her mother's world is a maze of etiquette and gentle rivalries. You watch as the queen tries to mold her daughter into a perfect consort, but your queen in the making always finds the gaps in the rules, the hidden meanings in a curtsy, the threats inside a compliment. There's a running joke among the ladies in waiting: she could outwit the court before she lost her first tooth. The older she gets, the truer it becomes. At feasts, she listens as adults talk of distant wars and shifting alliances. She learns that loyalty is never given freely, that the brightest smiles sometimes hide the deepest daggers. Once she watches two noble women argue over a necklace, one claiming it as a gift from the king, the other insisting it was stolen. Her father settles the dispute with a laugh and a new bauble for each, but the lesson lingers. Every favour, every trinket, every gesture is part of a larger game. Mainstream fact break. In many medieval societies, royal children were political pawns, promised in marriage or used as bargaining chips almost from birth. It was not unusual for a princess to be sent to live at a future ally's court while still a child, absorbing both their customs and their ambitions. One stormy night, lightning slashes the sky, and you find her pressed against a window pane, watching the world outside flicker gold and silver. She's not afraid, she's calculating, already wondering how she'll one day turn fear into power. Her nursemaid asks if she's scared of thunder. She only shakes her head. Thunder is loud, but it passes. Gold stays. There's a hint of a smile, the kind that would one day unsettle entire kingdoms. You see her at lessons, memorizing languages and histories, absorbing the tales of queens who lost their thrones to carelessness or mercy. When she reads about the fall of an empress who trusted the wrong friend, she doesn't cry. She closes the book with a decisive snap and asks her tutor to tell her the story of someone who won. Still, she's not entirely without joy. On feast days, she races through candlelit halls with her brothers, laughter trailing behind her like the silks of her skirt. But even then, she keeps count of the sweets given out, the promises made by grown-ups, the way servants bow deeper for her than for anyone else. You get a sense that she's always watching, always listening, always calculating, turning every slight, every kindness, every gift into another piece in her ever-growing game. She is gold, yes, but not the soft kind you can bend with your teeth. She is the sort that cuts. The years pass, and the palace grows less innocent. The air thickens with rumours, old alliances falter, and you can almost see the first shadows gathering at the edges of her childhood. But she's ready, you realise. She's more than ready. She's been training for the crown and its costs since the day she first closed her tiny fist around a gold coin and refused to let it go. And as she steps one glittering slipper at a time into the adult world of intrigue and ambition, you realise she's already learned the most important lesson of all. In this life, gold isn't just a measure of wealth. It's the very currency of survival. You drift beside her through the early mornings of palace life, the kind that begin with dew on roses and end with the dull ache of danger pressing against your chest. Her marriage has given her the appearance of safety, but you soon see how fragile that illusion is. Power. Here is a mirror. Look away for a second and someone else's reflection takes your place. And in this mirrored world, every glance is a gamble, every smile a secret being bartered. It is in the palace gardens, those supposed havens of peace, where the Queen's legend truly begins to bloom. You watch her moving gracefully through a thicket of climbing roses, the air heavy with fragrance and anticipation. Courtiers gather for what looks like a simple morning stroll, but their eyes flicker to one another, nervously assessing the arrangement of petals, the twist of a vine. You notice that even the gardeners pause when she passes, hands trembling on their shears, a mainstream fact. Medieval noble gardens were rarely private. They doubled as meeting grounds for both alliances and betrayals, their hedges hiding more than just lovers. This morning a new face joins the Queen's circle, a noblewoman of striking beauty and effortless charm, who carries her own share of dangerous secrets. She is the latest contender in a long parade of rivals. The Queen greets her with a kiss on the cheek, lips brushing just above a whisper, "Welcome. I do so love new flowers in my garden." Her courtiers smile, but you sense the tension like a harp string wound too tight, waiting for that inevitable snap. The newcomer is bold, clever, too witty by half. She jokes easily with the king, twirls her goblet in the sunlight, and wears crimson that matches the Queen's favourite roses. It's a challenge, one the entire court recognizes. The air thickens. You catch a joke from a nearby knight. "Careful, or you'll end up pruned," and everyone laughs too loudly, already on edge. But the Queen is patient. She does not scold or plot openly. Instead, she weaves the newcomer into the daily rituals, walks through the orchard, embroidery circles, late-night music beneath flickering candelabra, always watching, always listening. You notice how, with each passing day, the new rival becomes just a bit paler, her laughter a touch more brittle, as if she's inhaled too much of the garden's perfumed air. Then comes the fateful dinner, another in a series of endless feasts, with silver plates and crystal cups, the food as elaborate as the lies being told around the table. The Queen sits at the head, flanked by her husband and her newest favourite. The meal is flawless: roasted quail, honeyed figs, wine that glows deep red in the firelight. The court toasts to friendship, to prosperity, to beauty itself. The Queen raises her cup, eyes gleaming, and the rival smiles back, though her hand trembles just a little. A hush falls, broken only by the soft clatter of forks. It happens so quickly. One moment the rival is sipping her wine, the next she is coughing, then gasping, then slumping sideways, her fingers clutching at the linen in a desperate, silent plea. You feel a cold weight drop into your stomach. There is a flurry of movement, shouts for the physician, servants running in panic. The Queen stands, voice ringing with concern, too loud, too quick. "Bring water, help her." But you see the smile ghosting her lips as she turns away, already knowing the outcome. The gardens fill with rumours, as fast as with dew. Some say it was the wine, others whisper about a tainted fig, but everyone knows better than to accuse the Queen directly. The rival's family weeps and wails, but their protestations vanish into the manicured hedges. In this palace, accusations are clipped as neatly as rose stems. That night, as torches flicker and the household pretends to grieve, you see the Queen in her private quarters, gazing at her reflection. "Every rose has its thorns," she murmurs, fingers trailing over the pearls at her throat, "and sometimes the garden needs pruning. There's a joke here dark as midnight, sharp as a hidden blade. Even the moon seems wary as it peers through the high windows." A mainstream fact to anchor you: poison was the preferred tool of the powerful in many medieval courts. Elegant, almost undetectable, a way to rid oneself of rivals while keeping one's hands lily white. Royal kitchens became battlegrounds, and testers lived in constant terrified employment. You wander through the halls in the days that follow and sense the ripple of fear spreading outward. Servants wash the rivals' linens with trembling hands, as if afraid the poison might leak from the cloth. Courtiers trade theories in whispers, each story more elaborate than the last. One favourite: she smiled too sweetly and forgot that nothing grows too tall in the Queen's garden. In the aftermath, the Queen is more powerful than ever. The King, distracted and half believing the official story of a tragic illness, lavishes her with gifts, new jewels, new lands, new opportunities. The court bends ever closer, afraid and eager all at once. You can feel it, the shift in the palace's air, a subtle tightening, as if the walls themselves are bracing for the next inevitable pruning. And the Queen? She smiles, pours her wine with steady hands, and tends her roses with just a touch more care, already searching the faces of her courtiers for the next blossom that needs cutting down. You slip behind her shadow as night falls, drawn by the faint metallic tang of candlelit corridors and secrets too heavy to float. The Queen walks quickly tonight, quicker than usual, skirts brushing the mosaic tiles in urgent silence. She's headed to a wing of the palace most courtiers never see, where the air is thick and warm, and the only light comes from braziers tended by men whose faces never seem to change. Here, tucked away from prying eyes, the real work of her reign is underway: alchemy and obsession. The Queen's fascination with gold, you realize, is not just a matter of vanity. It's science, superstition, and power, all pressed together. You watch her slip into a cramped vaulted room that stinks of vinegar and old books. 3 alchemists, bearded, smudged, wary, bow in unison. Majesty, they say, but it sounds more like a warning than a greeting. On the tables lie strange tools, glass retorts, small furnaces, lumps of lead, and chunks of glinting pyrite. A thick book is propped open to a page, scribbled with the looping script of 100 failed experiments. She listens to their theories: lead into gold, gold into immortality, the body into something pure enough to be untouchable. She's not here for children's stories. Show me what you've made, she commands, voice cool as a dagger's spine. A mainstream fact: in the late Middle Ages, rulers from England to Byzantium sponsored alchemists, hoping to fill royal coffers or secure eternal youth. Many poured fortunes into the dream that one metal might be transformed into another, or that life itself could be extended by secret means. One of the alchemists, the boldest, unveils a lump of silvery metal. "Progress, Your Majesty," he declares. She inspects it, turning it over with a jeweler's precision. She asks questions no one expects. Does it burn? Does it break? And the answers are rarely satisfactory. She is not a woman to be fooled by cheap tricks. A lesser queen might have accepted a clever ruse, but not this one. She has the man thrown out by morning, quietly replaced with someone hungrier for success and less afraid of failure. But it isn't just gold she's after. She wants secrets, the kind that can make men rich or destroy them in a night. You watch as she questions her alchemists, demanding formulas for powders that numb, elixirs that loosen tongues, tinctures that kill without leaving a trace. They deliver, eager for her favor, terrified of her displeasure. Remember, she warns, gold is useless unless it buys loyalty. They nod, scribbling in their notebooks, hands shaking just a little too much. In a quieter moment, you find her alone, examining a collection of tiny vials. Some are labelled with crude drawings: a skull, a flower, a sun. She selects one and holds it to the light, watching as the liquid inside glows like a promise. Power should be beautiful, she muses, but it must also be final. She laughs, a soft musical sound that chills you more than any scream. A palace joke makes its rounds, whispered by the more foolish footman. If you anger her, you'll end up an experiment. Most laugh, but only after looking over their shoulder. There are lighter moments too. One evening, A young alchemist tries to impress her by making a powder explode into bright blue sparks. The queen raises an eyebrow and says, "Very pretty. Now show me what it does to a liar." The joke echoes down the hall, but no one's sure it's actually funny. Days blur into nights, and the queen's obsession grows. She starts spending hours in the alchemy chambers, watching the metals melt, the powders fizz, the candles gutter. You notice she rarely eats or sleeps, existing on a diet of curiosity and ambition. You wonder, sometimes, if she's trying to find a way to transform herself, to become something more than flesh and fear, more than a pawn or a queen. Her reputation spreads. Across the kingdom, people whisper that the queen is more magician than monarch, that she keeps bottles of liquid gold in her chambers, and that she's not afraid to use them. Foreign dignitaries bring gifts of rare metals and arcane books, hoping to curry favor. She accepts them graciously, but you can tell she's never satisfied. There's always one more secret to uncover, one more rival to outwit. Slipping quietly into the narrative, medieval alchemy was a blend of hard science and wishful thinking. While many formulas were little more than nonsense, some of the chemicals and distillation techniques discovered in these labs laid the groundwork for modern chemistry. But for the queen, alchemy is never just science. It's a philosophy, a way to bend reality to her will. She believes in transformation of metals, of people, of fate itself. If she could, you drift along beside her as preparations for the evening's banquet spiral into chaos. The scent of roasting meats and honeyed pears wafts through the palace corridors, almost masking the tension clinging to every stone. Servants rush, nervously straightening linens, adjusting gold candelabra, and triple-checking each goblet. Every detail matters. Tonight's banquet is more than a meal. It's a stage, and the queen is directing every glance, every trembling hand. You watch her glide into the hall at dusk, a silhouette in deep blue velvet, crown balanced just so, eyes bright with secrets. The courtiers bow and rise, a wave of jewels and fear. The king sits to her right, his smile polite but vacant, already lost to the years. At her left, the seats fill with favourites and foes alike. No one is ever quite sure which category they fall into, and that's just how the queen likes it. Tonight she's invited her closest allies and her boldest rivals, all seated within whispering distance. You slide along the table, listening to the laughter that's just a little too shrill, the compliments that taste faintly of poison. The queen lifts her goblet, her ring gleaming under candlelight, a reminder of promises made, debts owed, and fates sealed, a mainstream fact woven through the feast. Medieval banquets were not only displays of wealth but also subtle battlegrounds of etiquette and power. Who sat closest to the monarch? Who was served first? Who drank from which cup? All were coded messages, each gesture a move in a game as cutthroat as any battlefield. The meal unfolds in courses, each dish more elaborate than the last. Swans roasted and redressed in their own feathers, candied violets, mountains of sugared almonds, yet behind the opulence, you sense the restless undercurrent. At any moment, a single gesture could turn delight to disaster. You overhear a joke at the far end. Eat slowly. There's always more flavour in a rumour than in a pheasant. It's meant as humour, but the laughter is hollow. Midway through, a favourite musician strums a sombre tune, the melody sliding through the candlelit air. The queen's gaze sweeps the hall, soft, inviting, and yet somehow chilling. She listens as two lords toast her health, their voices wavering on the edge of panic. Each toast is a performance. To the queen's wisdom, to her unyielding heart. You sense there is much warning as celebration. At her signal, servants circulate with flagons of wine, their eyes carefully averted. Everyone watches the queen as she sips first, a delicate gesture. Only after her do the others dare drink, though you notice a few hands trembling, a few faces paling. You realize, as they do, that in this hall, even a simple drink is never simple. She turns to her newest favorite, last week's rival, this week's confidant, and offers a slice of candied pear, her smile both warm and razor-edged. "Trust," she purrs, "is the sweetest spice." The woman laughs, but the sound is brittle. You spot a bead of sweat at her temple, a quick glance toward the exits. Trust is in short supply here, a mainstream fact. Glinting beneath the gold, poisonings at court banquets were a real fear in many royal households. Food tasters existed not just for show, but for survival, and alliances could be undone with a single bite. As the night deepens, the tension grows almost unbearable. You hear a nobleman crack. "I'd rather face a war than one of her dinner parties." The table roars, whether in relief or dread. It's hard to say. The queen raises her goblet, and for a heartbeat, every eye in the hall is fixed on her. She smiles, savoring the moment. The feast winds down, and guests begin to slip away in twos and threes, heads bowed in exhaustion or in silent gratitude for making it through the night unscathed. The queen remains, picking at a sugared almond, her gaze distant. You sense her measuring the evening's victories and defeats, already plotting tomorrow's moves. One by one, her rivals retreat, haunted by the possibility that tonight's peace is only a prelude. In the silent aftermath, as servants clear the remnants and candles gutter low, you see her linger in the shadows, savoring the hush. Here, in this hall of gilded threats and empty platitudes, she is most alive. Not just the queen, but the puppet master whose strings no one dares to cut. And you realize, in her world, even the taste of honey can carry the sting of survival. You float beside her as the days grow shorter, the palace seeming to shrink with every long shadow that creeps across its marble floors. The feasts and garden strolls are fewer now, whispers travel faster than laughter, and trust becomes as rare as a clear sky in winter. The queen walks slower these mornings, her gowns heavier, the circles beneath her eyes deepening with each sleepless night. Yet you can't help but notice her gaze, if anything, is sharper than ever, slicing through veils of courtly etiquette like a hot knife through wax. She spends more time alone, or so it appears, but you know better. Behind screens and closed doors, the real games multiply. The king's health is waning, and with every cough behind his chamber's velvet curtains, the stakes climb higher. The queen cannot afford a single mistake. Every alliance, every casual word must be measured twice and cut once. It is a balancing act worthy of legend, and the rope she walks is slick with ambition and betrayal. You drift through her sleepless nights. She sits at her window, candles burning low, a ledger of favors and grievances open on her lap. She reviews every detail, the promises she's made, the secret she's stolen, the enemy she's left simmering in the background. There's a soft, almost mocking joke she whispers to herself. "If only insomnia counted as loyalty, I'd never sleep again." Mainstream fact. Medieval queens, even those with nominal power, often faced isolation as their husbands aged or grew sick. In some courts, queens acted as regents or quietly took over the day-to-day running of the kingdom, while appearing to defer to their husbands in public. The queen's trusted servants are her lifeline now. You see her reward them for silence with jewels and half smiles, while punishing the faintest hint of treachery with a look that could freeze boiling water. A lady in waiting is dismissed quietly one morning. By sundown, not even her perfume lingers in the halls. Everyone else straightens their spines and lowers their voices. The king, for his part, drifts further from the world. His council grows bolder, some hoping for a power vacuum, others jostling to become the next favourite. The queen is ready for them all. You watch her maneuver through a council meeting, voice calm and precise. She offers advice when asked, nods politely at suggestions, but behind every word she's 2 steps ahead. It's a performance, and the courtiers know it. Still, no one dares call her bluff. A running joke among the stewards, the queen never blinks, not even in her sleep. They all laugh, but you sense the nervous edge beneath. On the coldest nights, she wanders the palace corridors, her slippers whispering on the flagstones. You walk with her through galleries of family portraits, ancient queens in pearls and furs, each with the same guarded eyes. We all end up here, she sighs, staring at ourselves, hoping the paint won't peel. For a heartbeat, you glimpse the weariness beneath her iron composure. Yet she cannot show weakness. Not now, not ever. You watch her read letters from foreign courts, her hands steady, her replies brisk and unyielding. Every alliance must be maintained, every slight avenged. The Queen keeps a list, names marked with golden stars or dark angry slashes. You suspect that for every enemy erased, another rises to take their place. The balance is never truly hers. It must be seized again and again. A mainstream fact, the stress of court life and the constant threat of betrayal was known to shorten lives. Insomnia, stomach ailments, even mysterious deaths plagued those who lived too long under palace ceilings. And yet, the Queen endures. She draws power from the very tension that threatens to break her, finding clarity in chaos. She sharpens her mind on the whetstone of suspicion, polishes her smile until it shines like a weapon. It is exhausting, but it is survival. On nights when even the moon refuses to shine, you hear her. You settle in close as the palace grows colder, its corridors alive with footsteps that carry the weight of dread. The Queen, ever watchful, senses the shifting of tides in the hushed gossip that coils around the columns. In the glances cast when her back is turned, the King's health has dwindled to rumour and rasping breath, and already you can feel the vultures circling, some dressed as counsellors, others as kin. But tonight, something is different. The Queen's eyes glint with an energy you haven't seen in weeks, a spark that says she's tired of waiting for the world to strike first. She knows the whispers, that she's spent, that her reign is waning, that her last victories lie behind her. What they don't see is the molten heart beating under her composure, a resolve now cooling to the colour of vengeance. You follow as she summons her inner circle to a secret chamber, deep in the oldest part of the palace, where the walls are so thick that even secrets struggle to escape. You watch the faces gathered there, some loyal, some terrified, some quietly calculating how long loyalty will last if the winds shift. The Queen stands at the head of the table, fingers tapping a pattern only she knows. Her voice is low and sure as she issues her orders, some to safeguard allies, others to shadow suspected enemies, and a few to begin gathering the materials for a demonstration none will soon forget. A mainstream fact, medieval rulers often orchestrated public punishments to terrify potential traitors. The more inventive the penalty, the more it lingered in the collective imagination, and no one forgot the lesson. The Queen intends to make her mark in molten gold. By day, she continues the performance of civility, overseeing petitions, blessing orphans, offering measured smiles at the council. But by night, she stalks the palace's hidden heart, consulting with her alchemists, weighing gold bars in her palms, inspecting the newly forged apparatus. The plan is simple, brilliant in its cruelty. One rival, brash and overreaching, is summoned to her private chambers on a night thick with thunder. You're there as the rival enters, arrogant and oblivious. Assuming the Queen's invitation is a sign of favour, the air is heavy with the scent of hot metal and something else, a nervous energy that prickles the skin. The Queen sits poised, draped in black and gold, her eyes fixed on her guest. "Do you know what gold is worth?" she asks softly, her voice laced with honey and iron. The rival hesitates, then answers as best as anyone can, with a trembling bravado that fails to amuse her. She nods to her attendants. In the centre of the room, a small furnace glows red, a crucible already bubbling with molten gold. The rival blanches as realization dawns, but it's too late. The Queen's word is law here, her justice swift and blinding. She gives the signal. The guards hold the rival fast. A golden goblet is filled, its contents shimmering and deadly. A court joke has long circled, half jest, half dare. Careful you don't cross her, you might end up worth your weight in gold. No one laughs tonight. The room fills with heat and the crackle of burning. The queen's rival, once so defiant, crumples as the gold is forced down, agony flashing across every line of their face. Some turn away, some stare, some silently pray the lesson won't be lost on them. Through it all, the queen's face is unreadable, a mask of calm satisfaction and warning, a mainstream fact, glimmering in the horror. There are legends throughout history of rulers executing enemies with molten metal, an act both symbolic and cruel, meant to display ultimate wealth and unassailable power. The rival's body collapses, limp and ruined, the gold cooling to a jagged sculpture, a trophy of terror. The queen stands, surveying the aftermath, her message clear: power is not inherited, but claimed and enforced. The courtiers will speak of this night in frightened whispers, cautionary tales curling through the corridors long after the fires die out. Later, in the privacy of her bedchamber, the queen allows herself a rare, weary sigh. Fear, she murmurs, melts faster than gold. You wonder if she believes it, or if she's simply trying to convince herself that terror is enough to keep her safe. The palace is silent except for the faint hiss of cooling metal and the restless stirrings of a kingdom that has just learned what happens when a queen decides her enemies should drink molten gold. You linger in the corridor, the scent of hot metal clinging to your skin long after the rival's screams have faded. The palace is changed. The air thicker, more brittle, fear soaks into every velvet drape and painted panel. Word travels in the way silence settles, a hush more powerful than any trumpet call. Servants scurry with their eyes fixed to the ground, and even the bravest courtiers find new reasons to avoid lingering in the queen's shadow. Tonight the vaults beneath the palace are alive with activity. Torchlight flickers over sweating faces as the queen's personal guard prepares the chamber where her lesson will echo longest. The stone walls seem to absorb every sound, the scraping of metal, the whimper of a prisoner, the measured footfalls of those who know they walk on the edge of something final. The queen descends the spiral staircase in silence, her gown trailing behind like a dark current. At her side, a pair of trusted attendants follow, their expressions as unreadable as her own. Inside the chamber, the remains of the rival lie on cold flagstones, unrecognizable, transformed by the queen's will and the molten gold that sealed their fate. The queen surveys the scene without a flicker of regret, her gaze steady and unflinching. She commands her guards to display the body in the great hall, where every noble, every servant, and every messenger must pass by. The lesson is not subtle, nor is it meant to be. The stench of burnt flesh and gold fills the corridors, and no one asks questions. You watch her face, searching for a hint of weakness, a crack in her composure. There is none. If she grieves for the soul lost or the horror inflicted, she buries it deep beneath the cool armor of her authority. Her chin is high as she climbs the stairs back to her world of silk and ceremony. In the quiet of her chamber, she removes her rings and washes her hands, scrubbing until the last trace of gold is gone. The next morning, the court assembles in uneasy formation. Every eye follows the queen as she enters, her presence radiating cold certainty. She addresses them only briefly, her voice as sharp as the winter wind. There is no mention of last night's violence, only a chilling reminder of loyalty and consequence. Those who look away are marked, those who nod too eagerly are remembered. It is a balancing act, and she walks it alone. In the weeks that follow, the palace is subdued, almost reverent. Gossip dries up, laughter is a memory, and the old games are played with caution, if at all. The queen attends to her duties with relentless efficiency, signing decrees, holding audiences, bestowing favors to those who have proven their usefulness. She hosts a handful of feasts, but the atmosphere is changed, quieter, more formal, every word weighed, every toast raised with a trembling hand. Some nights, you find her standing alone in the gallery of ancestors, gazing at the portraits whose painted eyes watch her every move. She studies their faces as if searching for advice, or perhaps absolution, but none comes. She is the architect of her own legacy, and she knows it. Each decision, each punishment, each calculated act of cruelty is another brick in the monument she builds for herself. The Queen's power for now is absolute. Her enemies cower, her allies grow cautious, and her people whisper stories that drift out beyond the palace walls and into the city. They say she is made of steel and fire, that her touch turns even the purest heart to ash. They wonder what she dreams of, if she dreams at all. And in the silence after the screams, in the echoing stillness of a kingdom held in her thrall, you realize that the lesson of molten gold has scorched itself into every soul who serves beneath her roof. You move quietly now through the palace corridors, the scent of scorched metal never quite leaving your senses. The Queen's command has left the court raw and silent, as if the walls themselves are bracing for what comes next. Yet beneath this hush, you sense a new kind of order settling in, cold and immovable, her rule hammered into shape by terror and the gleam of gold. In the great hall, the consequences of defiance remain on display, a warning cast in shadow and gilded agony. Each noble who enters lowers their eyes, quickens their step, and utters only the most necessary words. Even the tapestries seem to wilt, their embroidered tales of valor and beauty dull beside the brutal truth hanging just beyond the candlelight. The Queen, for her part, does not hide. She walks the palace with deliberate calm, her footsteps echoing in spaces that used to ring with laughter and scheming. She holds court each morning, summoning those whose loyalty is uncertain, questioning, listening, letting the silences drag out until nerves fray. She rewards those who answer well with gold or a nod. Those who falter are dismissed, their futures left uncertain. Behind closed doors, you see her with her closest advisors, conferring in low, careful tones. They come to her with every secret and suspicion, their faces pale and drawn. She listens, weighs each rumor, each name, each hesitation. Her hands are steady on the armrest, her eyes giving nothing away. You realize that she is always watching, always counting, never truly resting. Each evening, the halls are swept, the doors locked and the guards doubled. The Queen dines in a small chamber now, choosing her company with the care of someone who knows trust is a luxury she can barely afford. Her attendants move quietly, clearing dishes before she even asks. She notices everything: who lingers, who avoids her gaze, who trembles at the sound of her voice. You observe the changes in her too. There's a new gravity in the way she sits, a deeper shadow in her smile. She spends hours alone in her study, poring over maps and letters, her fingers tracing the lines of her realm with both pride and caution. Sometimes you catch her staring at the gold ring she never removes, turning it slowly as if testing its weight. The court outside her doors is transformed. Whispers are fewer, and no one dares speak above a murmur. Ambition has gone underground, replaced by a careful, almost ritualistic politeness. Those who were bold are now cautious. Those who dreamed of rising have learned to value safety over glory. Even the smallest gatherings feel fraught, the old games of wit and rivalry replaced by watchfulness. Some nights, as the palace sleeps, you find her standing alone in the moonlit garden, her face turned to the sky. She is both triumphant and haunted, her solitude a fortress she wears like a crown. The garden itself seems to bend around her, the roses and laurels bowing in the hush. In these moments, you see the toll her rule has taken, not in weakness, but in an exhaustion she hides from everyone but herself. She has secured her throne, yes, but every inch of it was bought with something more costly than gold. Power has made her untouchable, but also utterly alone. And still, she presses on, unyielding, a figure carved from ambition and necessity, her legend growing darker with every step she takes through the halls she has tamed. You linger in the quietest corners of the palace, slipping through servants' passages and narrow stairwells where news travels on whispered breath. Here, in the gloom behind the grandeur, you listen as the stories wind around the Queen's name like a climbing vine. She has become less a woman and more a presence, inescapable, unsettling, shaping every word and action even in her absence. The servants move carefully, their footsteps measured, their conversations clipped and coded. Every command is obeyed without hesitation. Even a sigh can be dangerous, so most hold their breath until they're alone. Spies linger at every threshold, blending in with footmen and ladies in waiting, listening for signs of disloyalty. The Queen's reach is everywhere, a gesture in the kitchens, a glance in the corridor, a nod on the staircase. Her power hums beneath the surface, making the simplest tasks feel like tests. In the council chamber, you watch as messages are delivered and read in silence. The Queen sits at the head of the table, hands folded, eyes moving slowly from face to face. When she speaks, every ear strains to catch her words. No one interrupts, no one dares. Her questions are precise, her patience endless. She lets the tension grow, feeding on it, waiting until the smallest slip reveals a hidden fear or a buried ambition. When she nods, a weight lifts. When she frowns, it's as if winter has settled over the entire room. Away from these formal settings, you sense a different sort of communication pulsing through the palace. Letters pass from hand to hand, never written in a single identifiable script. Servants trade secrets for a night's safety or a handful of coins, always watching for eyes in the shadows. The Queen has set the tone. No one is too small or too safe to be noticed. Her own network is delicate and invisible, woven from countless tiny acts of loyalty and fear. You notice how a smile from her can be as chilling as a slap, how her silence is more eloquent than 1,000 proclamations. She does not need to shout. Her authority is woven into the very air people breathe. You move with her as she navigates the palace, her presence opening doors, her silence closing others. She knows every secret passage, every hiding place. She listens at doors, pauses in alcoves, and hears confessions never meant for her. Her spies report everything. Who argues, who weeps, who sneaks a letter into the night. Each piece of gossip is catalogued, measured, added to a ledger only she can read. Outside, the city feels the Queen's rule as well. Messengers gallop through the night, bearing orders that can elevate a merchant or destroy a noble family. In the market, traders lower their voices when discussing royal affairs. In the churches, prayers are whispered for peace and protection, but also for mercy from a queen whose name inspires as much dread as devotion. Back within the palace, the atmosphere is dense, thick with anticipation. You watch as old alliances fray and new ones form, stitched together by mutual fear. Some hope for a change, others simply hope to survive another day. Every movement is calculated, every word rehearsed. The Queen's gaze lingers in every room, even after she's gone. Sometimes you see her alone, tracing her fingers along the walls as if listening to the stone's memory. Her eyes are sharp, but there's a distance in them, a sense of listening not just to the present but to every secret ever whispered within these walls. You follow the Queen through the shifting maze of the palace, her steps light yet unwavering, even as the candlelit corridors grow colder. The world she rules is one of polished surfaces and hidden wounds, a domain where every affection is weighed, every embrace shadowed by doubt. Amidst this landscape of caution and calculation, a new figure emerges at her side, a man who is neither courtier nor rival, but something far more dangerous, a lover. He is charming, quick with a smile, and quicker with a secret. His laughter echoes down the galleries. His gaze lingers a heartbeat too long. Where others bow in fear or flattery, he leans in, whispering confidences that draw the Queen's guarded smile. You watch the subtle games they play, a glance exchanged over a chessboard, a shared walk beneath the garden's winter branches. Words soft as velvet in the privacy of dusk. He flatters without fawning, challenges without insolence, and she allows him closer than she's allowed anyone in years. In his presence you see something shift in the Queen. She laughs more easily, her edges blurring just enough that you catch glimpses of the woman she might have been in a different world. A world where love was not a liability. For a time, Her sleepless nights are softened by his stories, her burdens eased by his clever hands and silver tongue. The palace notices, the walls are not blind. Whispers bloom, and with them the old caution returns. Yet even as the queen warns to her new companion, the undertow of suspicion pulls at her resolve. She knows what it means to let anyone near her heart. She remembers too well how swiftly trust can become a weapon. One evening, alone together in a high chamber overlooking the city's lantern-lit roofs, she asks him what he desires most in the world. He answers, "To see you safe, to see you free." She smiles, but her eyes never leave his. You sense the first fracture as he begins to ask more questions about her counselors, about her plans, about the loyalty of those who serve her. He speaks softly, but his curiosity is sharp, and the queen's old instincts stir. She watches him, tests him, invites him deeper into her confidence, always searching for the moment when affection might tip into betrayal. One night, the truth arrives. You're there as the queen receives a warning delivered on a torn scrap of parchment, inked with panic and urgency. Her lover has been meeting in secret with another noble, exchanging coded notes and glances behind closed doors. It is the confirmation she never wanted, but always expected. The pain is quiet, almost graceful, as she acknowledges what must be done. She confronts him without spectacle, her words gentle, her manner almost tender. For a moment, he tries to explain, but she listens only until she is certain. Then, in a voice that leaves no room for plea or protest, she gives the order. He is to be removed quietly, cleanly, as though love itself were a weakness to be excised from her court. That night, the palace is utterly still. The queen walks her chambers, her eyes glistening in the candlelight, but her face set like stone. She places the small gifts he gave her, a carved chess piece, a silver comb, into a box and seals it, never to be opened again. You stand beside her as she stares out at the sleeping city, her solitude once more complete. In the days that follow, no one dares mention his name. The queen resumes her routines, her authority undimmed but her gaze colder than ever. The court senses the shift. If even the favoured can fall, then no one is safe. Those who serve her become more careful, more differential, hoping to stay invisible in the wake of another vanished star. The queen endures, her legend darkening with the memory of the last lover, proof that her heart too is a fortress, and that every opening brings only the risk of another betrayal. You remain at her side as the season turns, watching the palace fill with heavy scents of wilted roses and wax. The queen, who once seemed to gather strength from tension, now moves slower through her domain. The halls that once echoed with her firm steps are quieter, the colours of the tapestries faded, the air thick as if holding its breath. Her face, always composed, is marked now by lines etched from sleepless nights, the fierce certainty in her gaze replaced by a haunted kind of knowing. The queen's health has begun to falter. It shows in the way she clutches the armrests of her throne, in the tightness of her smile as she greets courtiers she no longer fully trusts. Her appetite wanes, and her hands tremble when she believes herself unobserved. Rumours flutter at the edges of the palace, stories of exhaustion, of mysterious pains that medicine cannot soothe, of nights spent coughing behind velvet curtains while the rest of the kingdom dreams. But the queen will not allow herself surrender. Each morning she orders herself dressed in the richest fabrics, every gem a talisman against weakness. You see her reviewing reports with relentless focus, issuing orders in a low, determined voice, still shaping the currents of power even as her body betrays her. She meets with her advisors in the shadowed chambers where secrets and strategies have always been spun. Their voices are careful, measured. They watch her more closely now, noting every hesitation, every wince, every moment her will flickers. The palace feels smaller, every chamber heavy with the weight of things unsaid. The queen's attendants move quietly, their concern masked behind formal gestures. Servants lower their eyes, aware of her fragility, but careful never to show pity. No one, not even the most faithful, knows how long she will endure. Alone, you find her seated by the window, looking out over the city as dusk gathers on the rooftops. Her breath is shallow, her shoulders squared in silent defiance. She gazes at the flickering lights below, the world she fought so fiercely to control. The sound of distant bells drifts through the air. The queen sits perfectly still, as if listening for a sign, a memory, a whisper from the past. In rare, unguarded moments, she allows herself to grieve the cost of her reign. She touches the ring on her finger, tracing its edge with a thumb worn thin. The ghosts of rivals and friends linger in her reflection, reminders of battles won and lost, of trust turned to ash. Her solitude is deeper than ever, yet she would not have chosen another path. She whispers to herself, "This is what it means to rule. This is what it costs." Nights are the hardest. Shadows gather thick in her bedchamber, where sleep eludes her, and each pain is magnified by the silence. She paces the floor, every movement a stubborn declaration that she remains queen, if only through will alone. Sometimes she stands before the gilded mirror, searching her own face for the girl who once walked rose gardens and believed herself invincible. Her decline does not go unnoticed. The palace changes. Courtiers grow restless, emboldened by her weakness yet still wary of her presence. Advisors gather in whispered meetings, alliances shift, and ambition stirs beneath layers of practiced loyalty, yet none dare move openly. The memory of her power is still sharp, her legend still alive in every trembling heart. Even as her strength fades, the queen endures. Every breath, every command, every sleepless night becomes an act of defiance. You sense that the final act is coming, that history's eyes are upon her. She remains at the heart of her kingdom, vulnerable, unyielding, a solitary figure forged by fire and shadow, determined to meet whatever comes next with the same resolve that shaped her reign. You walk the palace one last time, shadows trailing you from corridor to corridor as the queen's final night descends. The air is brittle, laced with unease, as if every stone remembers the weight of her footsteps and the cold edge of her resolve. Doors are closed, whispers travel faster, and the servants move with a reverence that is equal parts fear and mourning. She is diminished, yes, but not defeated, her presence still the lodestone around which everything else orbits. Tonight, the palace is silent, save for the muted steps of loyal guards and the distant tolling of bells beyond the ramparts. The queen sits alone in her private chamber, a single candle burning, its light wavering over the faces of her ancestors painted on the walls. Her breath is shallow, but her mind sharp. She knows, as do you, that the currents swirling around her throne are growing stronger, that her hold over her kingdom is nearly spent. Yet, even on this night, with her strength slipping away, the queen is not content to be a memory. There is one last matter to resolve, a thread of unfinished business woven through her reign, a final execution. Word arrives that a trusted advisor has betrayed her, conspiring with old rivals to hasten her downfall. The news is delivered quietly, but you feel the storm it awakens within her. She gathers what remains of her will, summoning the council and her most loyal attendants. Her voice is quiet but absolute, as she orders the traitor brought before her. The advisor is led in, pale and trembling, surrounded by armed guards who show no mercy. The queen's eyes are hollow with exhaustion, but their fire is undiminished. She speaks with measured calm, recounting every detail of the betrayal. No flourish, no drama, only truth laid bare like a blade in the moonlight. There is no trial, no plea for mercy. She gives the order. The execution is swift, almost ritualistic. The silence afterwards deeper than any prayer. The council is dismissed, their faces etched with dread and awe, leaving her alone once more at the center of the room. You linger as she returns to her chamber, the halls emptier now than ever before. The city below is hushed, the streets cloaked in shadow, as if all the world is waiting. She sits at her writing desk, pen trembling between her fingers, composing a letter she will never send. The candle burns lower, her profile limned in gold, her crown resting beside her like a memory. Her final hours pass in stillness. She gazes at her ring, the cold gold band heavy against her frail hand, its weight a testament to all she has endured. She closes her eyes, remembering each rival, each ally, each victory paid for with a piece of her soul. In the moments before dawn, she lies back, her breath quiet, her heartbeat slowing, her story folding in on itself like the end of a song. And as the sun rises, the Queen's reign ends, not in thunder or applause, but in silence, a silence that settles over palace and city alike, as if the world is holding its breath to see what will come after. You linger as dawn spreads pale light across the windows, filling the throne room with a hush so profound it almost feels holy. The Queen's passing has left the palace suspended in a strange and fragile stillness, a moment caught between memory and possibility. Servants move like shadows, careful not to disturb the peace, their every step heavy with the knowledge that something vast has ended. The city beyond the gates waits, uncertain, the silence broken only by the slow tolling of bells as word of her death drifts from street to street. The throne, draped in black and gold, stands at the heart of the great hall, more formidable now than ever. Her ring rests on a cushion beside the crown, the symbol of both her triumph and the loneliness that came with it. Advisors gather in uneasy clusters, their voices hushed, their faces guarded. Each one wonders aloud what will happen now that the Queen, whose will shaped every corner of this kingdom, has left the world. You drift through the palace, retracing the steps of her life, the gardens where roses still bloom, the hidden chambers where secrets were forged, the echoing halls where her laughter once carried. Every space holds a memory, a lesson, a warning, a mark of her power. Portraits of ancestors stare down from the walls, but it is her legacy that fills the air, palpable and undeniable. Outside, the people gather in the square, some in awe, some in fear, all drawn by the legend that has already begun to form. Stories blossom, some true, some exaggerated, each retelling adding another layer to the myth. They speak of her cunning, her ruthlessness, her unmatched command, the Queen who could not be swayed, who punished betrayal with molten gold, who never yielded even as the world pressed in. They whisper that her spirit lingers, watching, ready to judge whatever comes next. Inside the palace, the council meets to debate succession. New alliances are forged, old grudges rekindled, yet over every conversation hangs her memory, a standard none dare claim to match, a warning to those who would dare to rule in her wake. The lessons of her reign are carved into the marble, woven into every decision, every hesitation. The palace, the council meets to debate succession. New alliances are forged, old grudges rekindled, yet over every conversation hangs her memory, a standard none dare claim to match, a warning to those who would dare to rule in her wake. The lessons of her reign are carved into the marble, woven into every decision, every hesitation. You remain with her for a while longer, feeling the rooms shift and settle, as if the stones themselves are reluctant to let her go. The sun rises higher, painting the windows with gold, and still her presence lingers, a shadow, a promise, an echo that will outlast any crown. So now, as the day fully awakens, and the last embers of candlelight dissolve into the bright hush of morning, you find yourself drifting far from the palace's stone corridors, your own breath slowing, shoulders softening, the memory of her story wrapping around you like a faded velvet cloak. The kingdom stands quieter than ever, a world stilled by the absence of her footsteps. Her legend hovers over the rooftops, her name woven into the hush that lingers above empty halls and silent gardens. It is a silence dense with meaning, each heartbeat echoing with the traces of her reign, of the choices made, the victories seized, and the costs counted in sleepless nights and wary glances. In this hush, you feel both the weight of her rule and the fragility of the peace she enforced, as if the land itself is pausing, holding on to the memory of what once was. You let your thoughts travel gently through the rooms she shaped, each chamber, each secret passage, each pane of glass coloured by the rising sun. It's as if the palace breathes with you, slowing, releasing, letting go. The world outside moves on, but for these moments, the past is allowed to linger, a gentle tide that soothes rather than stirs, a story that unwinds itself softly at the edge of waking. Here, there is no more fear, no more intrigue, only the steady quiet of a kingdom at rest, a queen's legacy set down for the night. You can almost hear her final whisper on the breeze, not a threat, not a warning, but a simple permission. It's safe to let go now. Breathe deep. Let your jaw unclench, your hands loosen. The story settles around you, protective and warm. And so, with the last golden rays softening across your mind, you drift towards sleep. Sweet dreams.